Hi everyone, here we are with new Cinema 4D architecture tutorial, and we are going to model the parametric facade, and for this manner I have chosen the Zahner factory. I have the image here, and yes, I have chosen the Zahner factory. This is a concrete glass structure, and for the facade is covered with aluminum panels which are arranged horizontally and created this interesting wavy pattern. First, we are going to create the raw structure of the building, of the facade, the outer shell, and the second part we are going to create these panels. So for the first one, we want to create a box with a specific number of segments. So let's begin with that. Let's jump in. Okay. For that, I'm going to create a cube. And for the dimensions, for the size, I don't have exactly the size of the building, but I can assume it should be something like 4,000. So, oh, it's maybe too much. No, it's okay. And in z-axis, I think 12,000. And the height, I'm going to use 2050. So it should approximately be the size of the building, as we have here. Okay. Now for the segment, I have to bring the picture again. For the vertical segment, I have in the picture one segment here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments vertically, and for the horizontal segment I'm going to use the size of also the width of the windows, and I think it should be something like 100 to 150 centimeters, and I don't know the exact count, but it's okay, we can manage that. So first, if we want to see the segment, we have to go to display and activate the guard shading. So here when we add segments, we can see them visibly here. So as we said before, the Y segment, it will be 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments. And for the X segment, I don't know exactly how much segment it has, but the good thing about Cinema 4D is that the entry fields can be used to enter a specific value, or it can be used as a calculator. For example, I can enter here 20. So it will give me 20 segments in X direction, but I can also enter 4,000, so the size of the building in the X-axis, and I know that each segment in width, it should be 100 centimeter or 150 centimeter. I'll try first with 150, so I divide 150 as we do in the calculator and enter, and it gives me exact number of segments I need. I do the same for the z-axis, so 12,000 divide 150 is 80. So I have the exact amount of segment I need. Okay, that is perfect. So now I'm going to create a copy of the building and hide it out. I make a copy just in case something goes wrong and we want to have access to the original setting we had. So I name it to the raw building or building, simply building. Okay, so I make it editable. When I do that, we don't have access to the parameters we have here, but instead we have access to this volume as a volumetric object. So it would be points, width of points, or lines. I have access to lines, or faces, or polygons. So I have access to the polygon. But as you see here, I don't have access to the parameters we had before. This is why I saved one parametric of the object in case something goes wrong, so we have access to the original parameters. and we can change and make a new one if we want. So for that, let's go further. So let me see the picture again. So as we see here, at the corner we have a rounded corner here, and for that I can use I'm going to line mode UL, and I'm selecting a loop of these two. I'm selecting these two loops, and I'm going to dissolve them. So MN is the shortcuts. Now I'm select the edges, but it's important to check this box on so that only the visible elements will be selected. Something like this. To select the other ones that I don't need, and I go to bevel. You have it here, and check the limit on and drag it to the maximum. Yeah, this is enough. And I'm adding subdivisions, so it should the size of the subdivision must be almost the same as these two sides. I think maybe 3 should be good enough. Yes, it's okay. It's great. Okay, now when we see the image, we see that the bottom segment is a bit higher than the other segments. So we'll do the same here. I'm selecting the horizontal segments by shortcut UL, and by holding Shift key, I'm going to select the other horizontal segment. So now that all are selected, I'm using the shortcut MO for slide. I'm setting it to 0, the offset, and I'm going to drag it a bit up. I think 100 minus 120 should be enough. Okay, now it looks much better. So now the raw structure is done. We will come back to this volume and try to create the windows and the glass and so on. But for now, let me just hide out this building, and let's begin with creating the panels. So I'm creating a new cube here. Okay, I name it panel, and for the size I give it 50 in X direction. In Y direction, I will try to maintain the height of the building here as well. So 2050, yes, it's okay. And for the Z size, I use just 10. That will be our panels later. So let's add it, give it some segments. In Y direction, I get 2, 3 maybe. Yes, 3 is enough. And X1 and Z1 also. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to make it editable. And UL, I'm selecting the loop and try to drag it near the edge as possible. Something like this. Yes, it's good enough. Then I'm going to select the points here and the bottom. I'm going to scale these two down, something like this. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to use the knife tool to make a loop here, and I'm going to zero the Y difference to 0 and drag it up. No, not individually, but together like this. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the polygon pen and zero these points together to combine these points together. So we are done this part. And we do the same for the downside of the panel. KL. We're making the loop cut. Then I'm going to line to point mode, UL, select the points, and 0 the Y. So the position is also good, but I can also drag it a bit down. Okay. Now polygon pen, I'm going to do the same here as well. Yes, that's good. And it's also important when you do your modeling, and when you're okay with the end result, it's also important always to select all the points and optimize them. So it can happen that some points are overlapping together, and later on they will corrupt your model in the process of modeling. So it's really important to optimize it. We should do also the same for the building later. We should also optimize the points too. Okay, now I'm trying to make another copy of the panel, but with a more depth. So I have 50 depth in x-axis. I'm to create another one, but I'm using the same panel. I'm not creating a new, but I'm showing you how I do it. It's simply easy. I'm going to panel, right click to the tag, the character tag. We have this pose mode tag. I'm added. Come here to port to the tag, and here what I want to change are the points. So it's automatically create a copy of two copies of the same model. The base pose is what we do have here, and the pose null is actually the second model that we want to modify. So let me show you what I exactly mean with that. I go to the front view. Okay. I'm going to rectangle selection. Be sure this time that the visibility is off, because I want to select all the points that comes in my rectangle actually. Okay, now they are selected. I go to the 3D view. You see that all the points are selected. Okay, and I'm give it the panel with some more depth. I'll go for something like 240, 220 maybe. Under 20. Okay, it should be enough. Okay, now when you see here, we have the strength here. The strength bar is this on 100. So when it's on 100, it's try to recreate this to come to the second pose. So this one. When I go to 0, it will go back to the base one. This is base one. This is the second one, as you see here. So 100, it will be pose to 0, and 0 is the base pose. So we have both in the same, but just as one object. Okay, now we want to arrange these panels horizontally on the building facade. So let me make the building visible again. Okay, and as we said before, I'm Control A, I'm selecting all the points and optimize. Okay, now what I want to arrange the panels along this building horizontally. For that panel, I have to use the cloner, and for the clone object, I'm dragging out the spline. I make a spline out of this one of these horizontal segments. So let me show you how. It's also not so difficult. I go to line mode, UL. For example, I select this one in the middle, and I'm going to deselect the lined in the back side of the building, because we are not going to see it and we are not to make our model heavy for something that's not important at all, just because we want the panels in the front side, not the back side. Now we go to the to mesh command, and here we have a command named edge to spline. It copies the edge here that we have and convert it to a spline. So I name it clone spline. It's really important to have your object clean and name them as soon as you create them, to have everything in control and everything organized. So cloner spline. So now I'm going to MoGraph and create a cloner. In cloner we have to, for mode, and we have to go to object mode, and for the object we use the cloner spline. So, and for the cloner we drag the panel beneath the cloner object. So as we see, we have something going on here. We have the panels on the spline arranged, but it's not enough, and it's also the wrong side. Something is not correct here. But first thing first, we go to cloner, and the count, instead of count, I go to vertex. So every vertex on the spray line we have one panel inserted in it. Now for the direction of the panels, we go to transform. Let me see, yes, this is the correct one. I'm entering 180, and now they are the right side, as you see here. Okay. And you see now we have all of them copied here. And the good thing about Cinema 4D that you can see all the process here. So if you give it away to some friends or you work as a team, they can simply see the structure here, and understand how you made it, and go further with the process. That's also important, you keep everything clean here. So as we hear, when I drag it to 0, this will go to the first panel, and when I drag it to 100, it will be the second panel. Okay. Now I want to make this wavy form that we had on the facade. For that matter, we are going to use morph deformer, but the deformer would just work on an object if it is a child of the object, or it is inserted on both object and the deformer have the same hierarchy. And by that I mean I'm creating a null and dragging the cloner and the morph deformer as a child of the null. And I name it panels parametric. So what we need here for the morph deformer, that it has a field named morph, and we have to drag a tag that we want this morph to work on. So I drag the tag here. So we see here. So this is the active one. So we have a slider here. When I turn it to 0, it has the same effect as we had this in the tag option, in the tag. In the morph tag. So they will both do the same thing. So, but this gives me more control about it, because now I have access through this deformer to the follow-up and the fields. So for morphing, now I'm going to use for that shader field. Okay, what's going to do? In the shader field, I'm going to come to shader here and select the noise. So now a noise pattern are inserted on our cloner. But as you see, nothing has happened yet, because on the tag here, we have to go from edit to animate. And as soon as we do that, we see that we have the effect of the noise that we had before here as well. But if you see this exactly now, this seems a bit not so good as we expected, as you see here. And This is because the size of the noise is too small. I go to the shader noise and I'm going to increase it to something like 800, and I don't want it to be so solid. I want this to have some smooth edges, not so sharp edges actually. So for that I'm going to use a subsurface and drag the panel parametric as a child of the surface. And now what we see here, we have this smooth firm created on our panels right now. Okay, but we see the noise is too noisy. We don't have that noise, so that kind of noise. And because of that, we have to play somehow with the noise here. But first, before we do that, if we see in the image, the panels don't have the same height, so they vary through the building. Some has more height, some has lower height, and what I understand here, they are actually the variation in y direction. They have all the same height, but they vary in the height of where they are positioned actually. So for that, I'm going to use an effector. I'm going to MoGraph effector. I'm going to use shader effector here as well, because I want to give it and control it through a noise. I'm going to noise to parameter here, and I don't want to control the scale, I want to control the position. And what position? Actually the Y position. Nothing had happened because we have not entered the noise here. So when I enter the noise, you see nothing is still because we have to assign the shader on the cloner. So I go to effector, and drag in the shader here. And as soon as I do that, you see something has happened here exactly, but it's not what we want, but we are close to that. So now we go to the noise. We want a bigger scale noise. So I go, and surely in the Y and in X direction and the Z direction. So I'm going to increase this. So I go to maybe, let's see, 500. Okay, now you see an example of the pattern, how it looks here. We need something more, so I think I double it, 1000, and this 1000 too. Okay, and now I'm going to increase the global scale, so 500 maybe. No, it's not enough. So 2000. Okay, and to better imagine how it works, I'm going to here and increase this. Okay, we see here nothing has happened. Nothing here. I'm sure this is the same. Okay, so value of 500. Okay, now before that I go to effector, min and max here. I can assign, this is the maximum minimum. So what these controls, it controls this parameter. So it says that Cinema 4D should vary the height of each panel according to the shading, to the noise, but it begins from 0 and to 100%. But I can drag it like this, and so I'm defining that this should vary the height of the panels from -500 to +500, not to 0 to 500. I'm hoping you understand what I mean. I'm explaining the game more to be sure that you get what I mean. So here in effector, when we have it minimum on 0, it says that the deformer, the effector, should affect the cloner child, so our panels, in the way that the noise we have defined here, and give it a height to 500 centimeters. So from position 0 to position 500. Okay, but when you give it a minimum of -100, then the parameter will try to move the panel from minus 500 to plus 500. You see, this is the difference. So now we have this cool wavy form that we wanted, and we can always change it. So if I want to drag it a little up, I can select the clone spline that we cloned everything on it. I'm going to object mode and drag it a bit up. Something like this, yes. Okay, for now it's enough. We can change it whenever we want. For example, if we are not okay with this form of the shader, we can change the seed and get a random form and choose the best that match our desires. For example, this one, I go with this one. I think it can be nice. Now to this part, the shader field. What we have done so far, we give a noise on the morph, so it's morphing the form, but we have to change the size as well. So before that, I'm going to go to the 100% again and create the wave that I want. For that, I'm going to use a turbulence. Turbulence wave. And importantly, I just need 1 octave, so it's simpler. I don't want this complex form. And I'm going to do the same here. I'm adding I'm giving it 800 in z-axis again at 2. Okay, maybe it's enough. Okay, but now I'm going to increase the global scale. I'm going to maybe 2000. Okay, now if we want to see it better, I'm going to increase the contrast, something like this. So 85% is enough. Okay, we are getting there. And for that, I'm going to use 80 maybe. And same here, we can change the seed we want. 800, I think it's not enough. Maybe we need more, so 1200. Z-axis 2. Maybe not. It's a bit tricky to get the result you want here. So I'm going to give it 200. Yes, I think it's the right direction. 300. No, 250. Okay, I'm staying with 250 for now. I'm changing the seed. Okay, actually this one is not bad. Okay, but now we have also in field, it's interesting, in field part, we can go to remapping, and as you see here, we have a linear remapping. This tries to create transform the noise on an object linearly, but I don't want that. I want to have it as a curve, so I have a better control of it. So now if I play with the curve, you see I can manage it, so somewhere it will be deeper or less deeper. I can define it, so I have better control of it. You see here, for example, like this. If you want to play with it, it can take so much time if you want really to play with this thing. And I'm trying to get the best results as fast as possible here, in sake of the time we have for the tutorial. So yeah, I think this should be enough. If later on when you create it, you can go on and spend more time and maybe get a better result. Something like this. And the good thing about it is we can animate it. So for example, if you have a facet that you want to animate it as a parametric object, you just need to add this animation speed to the noise. And now if I play, you see that our noise, our facet is animating. How cool is that? That's the part I like the most, actually. Okay. So okay, it's done. Now let me go back to the field, to this part, and play with this parameter and see if we can something better. Yes. Okay. And this shader, maybe I try with 250 here as well. Yeah, see, this is more exaggerated. Changing the seed. Yeah, this is not bad. This is not bad at all. So, for now, I think that the depth of the panels are not much enough. So I will give it more depth. So temporarily, I'm going to deactivate the panels, the cloner, and the building, so I can see my original panel here. I'm also deactivate the morph and the subsurface, and I'm going to the tag, going to edit again, and here I'm going to point mode and increase the point. Another thing in Cinema 4D that I like is this: you can access and what do you say? You can change the everything in a short amount of time. So, for example, here I wanted more depth. So, as simple as you see here, I can go through my entire process and change it, and this will also change entirely in all of the project automatically. So I think 200. We'll see how it is. So I'm activate again everything. Okay, sorry, here. Okay. Cloner and the building. I'm going to object mode. Here again. Okay, you see we don't have this curve and this waveform here again. This is because we made changes on edit mode, but we didn't turn the animate. So when I go to animate, okay, now it has more depth, and I like it more even. So now I'm going to the fields here, and I'm going to increase it. So maybe 300. See how it works. Yes, not bad. 1000. Let me try 4000. 4000. See how it is. No, surely not what I want. 2000. 2000. Yes. And this I try to 1500. Okay. It's better. Now 200. Maybe 100. Original value. No, it's too wavy. I don't like it. Yeah, 200 is, I think 200 is good enough. I can play with the seeds. This is not bad. This is not bad at all. Of course, it's not the same wave that we had here in the picture. It has some other, but if we want to get the same result as here, exactly the same result, instead of the noise we had in our shader, you need a specific shader that defines these curves. So the black values will be 0 position, and the white value will be this depth of the panel. And then you have this exact same wave that we have here. But because I didn't have access to the same shader that is used here, I stick to the noise that I made myself here. and I'm stick to that. But if you want, you can try to make the shader and then go forward and create the exact waveform that you see there in the picture. So 500, now 6,000, 6,000. You see here, this is too flat because the scale are too high for the curve to show itself. So 250 maybe. 250. 2000, 2000. I think the value here is good enough. Yeah, something like this. You can always play this with the contrast, and you can also use the remapping to define the transition between the black and white values of the noise, how these noise values should affect the cloner. That can you do this here. You can do it here. Maybe I drag it a bit down and try something like this. Okay. Looks better. And drag it a bit up. Okay. Not bad. Okay. I'm going to stick with this for now. And now for the next part, we are going to create the glass windows. And for that, I'm temporarily going to hide the panels and go to our building, go to surface mode. I'm going to select the surfaces here. Okay, this is where the windows parts are coming in. So now I'm going to inner extrude, but importantly, I don't want to preserve group. I want every part to act alone. But before that, I've made one mistake. I should first extrude it a bit inside. So I extrude it inside, something like 40, maybe 40 minus 40. And now I'm going to inner extrude. 10, no, 10 is much. 5. Yes, 5 is good enough. And now I'm going to extrude again. Minus 8. Great. And now, because we want for the material, first I'm going to, for the material part actually, we need to define where the glass part is and where the mullions are and where the concrete part is. And for that, for the glass part, I'm going to make a selection. So I'm going to set selection and name it glass polygons, or glass poly. And I'm going to enter and UL. I'm going to loop selection and selecting the concrete part. So, and be sure that you are not activated in this. You see this yellow rectangle around our glass poly that we had here. This should not be active. So just the building should be active and not this. Now see that this red rectangle is gone, so it's not active anymore. And I'm going to select and set another selection. So the selection 2, this is concrete, poly. So, and now if you want to see why I've done that, let me create a simple two materials for the sake of this tutorial. For one, I give it a bluish color, and the other one I give it a yellowish color, something like this. Okay. I drag both on the building. Okay. But now that I have this selection, I can just select this. This is the glass poly, so I can select my material tag here and drag this glass poly to the selection here. And for the other one, I can do the same, but I use the concrete part. As soon as I've done that, you see that automatically drags the bluish color on the concrete part and the yellowish color on the windows. And for the curtains, for sure, I can use this, for example, red color, for example. I can simply now drag it on the building and be sure that is before the other two, because all the process here are hierarchical. So it counts from top to bottom and from left to right. It's always like this. So now you see that I have simply dragged and defined the material for the later, when I want to assign material to the building, as fast as possible. So I don't need to select them individually. Okay, good. Now that we are done with the materials, let me turn on the panels again. This is what we have so far, and but they are sometimes missing. If I show you the image, there's another image for the Zahner factory. There are some, as you see, there are some spiders that are joints that connect the panels together. We want to create this too and add it to our scene. If, of course, if we wanted this one by one, it would be very difficult and time consuming. And of course, we need the noise that affected these panels to affect the spiders as well. So we have the same structure that we have here on spiders too. Okay, that will be done in the next tutorial, the next part. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and follow us on the next part that we are going to complete this model completely. Thanks for watching.